Hello and welcome to our Star Trek Discovery After Show. As always, I am Christian Bladt, and as always, you are Nikki Bailey.
Hey there.
Great to see you, Nikki. Great to see everyone in the chat, and I hope that our friend Craig is able to make it because as I said last week, when Craig's not here, he keeps us honest,
He
and
does.
we hope he's able to watch after the fact. But even if he's not here, he did tweet at us his favorite Star Trek movie, and we can spend a moment or two on that. But first, let's talk about season 4, episode 10, The Galactic Barrier. We will dive into that. And if you are wondering what we're going to do about this show and about Picard, we'll talk about all that at the end too. But let's dive into The Galactic Barrier. Nikki, big picture, overall thoughts.
Big picture is I didn't actually need so much of the Tarka backstory.
Yep.
Um and but was also really no. Here's my big picture. I wish that we had gotten through the barrier more quickly and could have spent more time with the changes on the crew. Like it looked like Bryce left and there's a new guy,
Yeah.
and
And Adira
so
came back. So
and
I feel
Adira
like
came back.
they
Yeah,
have like when in the writers room when they're working on these episodes, they have like one of those, they have like a bouncer at a bar with one of those little clickers, and there's only a certain number of characters they can have on the show. They're like, well, Adira's coming back in, so they got him in two hands. It's like Adira's coming back and we got to get rid of somebody, and it's like Bryce, it's like we barely know him and he's gone.
right, right.
So I was surprised to see him leave, and it was also, I mean, they don't use him enough, so it's not going to be like a huge loss, but it's like I just keep hoping that we're going to get more out of these characters, and
Yeah.
they're like, nah, we'll leave him behind. So maybe it's because they've got the Bryce spin-off that everyone's been clamoring
Oh,
for
of
in
course,
the
that's
works.
what it is.
Yeah.
Star Trek Bryce.
I hope that's what it's called. Star Trek. Star Trek Bryce.
Bryce.
Yeah, so that was my first thought, and then I was just like, wait, why is he leaving? And then we see Adira a little bit later. I'm like, okay, that's why. It's like, look, we can only really write like 12 characters, and then it gets
There's a
tough like that.
character budget.
But I agree with you on the Tarka thing because yes, it's interesting to get a little backstory, but it's kind of like what you felt his backstory was. I also thought it was interesting for this show, 4 seasons, almost the end of the fourth season, to suddenly get a little squeamish about like, well, they're just really good friends. The amount of, you know, basically the amount of relationships on this show that fall under the big queer umbrella that I think it's been really groundbreaking in that way. And then for some reason this one they're like, well, I mean, they just kind of like took a nap together. And I was like,
Yeah.
why did you pull back on that? It felt in another, like, let's put it this way, if this was an episode of Deep Space Nine 30 years ago, I'm like, well, yeah, of course they're just going to say that they're friends because they don't, you don't want to lose affiliates, you don't want the headaches. But it's like, it's this show. Like, I don't know, did that strike you at all, or or am I being unduly harsh?
No. I truly thought we were going to find out. I truly thought that we were going to see the evolution of the romance that
Yeah.
Tarka was alluding to this whole time. Like I didn't think he was having this almost obsessive need to get to the man who was just his friend. I didn't think that was what we were working with. I thought this was a romantic relationship. So yeah, I was very surprised by that actually.
Yeah, and whatever that decision making process was. I mean, the story is the same without it. It's just, and again, it's because it's this show. You're just like, well, this doesn't seem genuine. But whatever it is, you see that he legitimately. I mean, since we've met him, he's really only cared about himself. And the like 1A to that is that this is apparently the only other person he's ever met that he cares about, but he cares about himself because he wants to try and get back to this person. But I don't know. My gut, Target, this guy's dead. And he's been dead for like at least 9 years of the 10 years since you've seen him.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe some closure could help, but I don't know. I thought it was interesting, but again, it is another one of those things. It's like, here's another character that we didn't ask for, and we're spending a lot of time in the flashback.
A lot of time.
Yeah.
It
And
was,
it's not like the episode was like an hour and 3 minutes because they spent so much time. It came at the expense of other story we could have been getting.
yeah, agreed.
So we understand him a little bit better, but I think because of that, I guess Book is able to relate. He's tolerating this guy, which, by the way, he should not. He really should just kind of strike out on his own. You know,
Yeah, I
but
really thought Book was gonna, when Book was like, "Your stuff's packed and get ready, get off my ship." I thought that was gonna be the move to get Book back to Discovery, back to Burnham. Um, but yeah, no, I was a little surprised that we went so deep on Tarka.
well, let's switch to sort of the other side. This was a little bit of a disappointment, but I've never been able to identify with Saru more than in this episode. The very awkward, sweaty palm, like, so. You think there's anything here? Oh, I have to go.
Oh, I
Oh,
screamed. I was screaming at the television. I was like, "Don't do my boy like that. Don't leave him
yeah.
hanging."
And I do appreciate that they didn't leave us, specifically you and I, twisting for like another week. That it's like, oh, let's sit down. I do enjoy your company. It's like, all right, now this is mixed signals. That's a little bit different, but it's like, I'm not, I don't hate you. But man, in that moment, and then he's also like, wait, she's gonna be on the ship. Well, I wouldn't have said that. I thought I was never gonna see her again. But oh man, that the like when he sees her on the ship, like, oh, I didn't expect you to be here. I look, I when this show can turn into 32nd century Degrassi Junior High, I am all here for
All
it.
in for it, definitely. You know what I thought was so great about that? That through all of prosthetics and all of the stuff that he wears, you still got his complete mortification
What
at seeing
good.
her. It was
Yeah.
just perfect. It was so
what
good.
what Doug Jones does in this episode with his eyes, because that's the only part of his face we get to. It's just like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's body language and his eyes, and you're just like, oh man, I could have, I wouldn't have been surprised if he had said to Dr. Colbert, yeah, thanks a lot,
right.
you know, great. Now I feel worse. Now she's avoiding me, uh and then let's sit in this bar that I'll just affectionately call 10 not so forward. Okay,
Nuts.
it's just 10 friends. Just thought of that now, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm super proud of myself
You
as
should
I'm
be. That
talking.
was really, really good. That was awesome.
uh, I'm gonna tweet this moment to my friend Tom Kelly, who's been on with us before, a comedian in New York, who might be popping in on occasion on another show we'll be doing soon, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, and honestly, the story did move along, and I thought that there was some decent stuff, but this was the high point for me. I think that what I'm invested in this season now is is really President Torina and Mr. Saru. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. if if the ship blows up, we lose everybody, but the two of them, are in an escape pod, and that's going to be season 5. I'm like, all right, well, I'll tune in for that.
Yeah,
you know, I'll
definitely.
I'll push in all the chips on these two, because I feel like it's just where I'm going to get the most enjoyment, the most bang for my buck here. Anybody watching in the chat, whether it's anybody watching the show, whether you're watching live in the chat or you're watching the archive, let us know what you thought. um I know it's I'm tempted to. I hope somebody like cuts together just the scenes of these two, so we can really watch the evolution of the
The evolution
relationship,
of their love.
and
I
that
would love
there's
that.
a happy ending. Let's talk about the interesting dynamic of, the between Burnham and the Federation president. I think has, there have definitely been peaks and valleys, but I thought it was important for Burnham to be like, okay, just remember, you're on my ship, and do not sass me in front of my people, because there's a track record, and even after that conversation, she still kind of gave her a couple looks.
Yeah.
It's like, who do you think you are, the president? Oh, right, okay.
You're you're my president. That was a moment.
Yeah.
At the end there. Yeah, no, I was actually really surprised that Rillick decided to get to go on the mission.
The
But it did.
explanation made sense, but
I
it's
was just
also
gonna say that.
still
Yeah.
like, it's like we established on, Next Generation that the captain doesn't usually go down for the away missions, and the president is more irreplaceable than a captain, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All due respect to our friend Jean-Luc, but at the same time, and by the way, when they talked about I'm giving when she's telling Admiral Vance, I'm going to turn over the power to my vice president, and I assume you'll support them. I expected to meet the vice president. I also expected him to be I'm assuming him, because what my expectation was that the character was going to be a dick. So I'm like, all right, so some dude's going to come in and he's going to be like, all right, I'm doing things different. I'm in charge now. But nope, nothing. So, and look, there's a few more episodes. They're still on the other end of the Great Barrier, but I just, that was one of those moments I'm expecting to meet a new character, but that goes back to they only have room for 12 characters an episode, I
Right.
suppose.
So they couldn't add another character.
Do you think that's what it was, Nikki?
They had reached their character budget for the
Yeah.
day, so for the
It's like
episode. So
we're all up.
So let me ask you this:
Yeah.
in the meeting that they had at the beginning, where Dr. Kovich was where they were talking about whether or not the universal translators would work, Dr. Kovich said nobody would sign up for a 3-hour tour.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, is that a Gilligan's Island reference?
So it's definitely a Gilligan's Island reference, and it's, he's like, just, it's a turn of phrase, but I'm like, how, even if this were the era of I was gonna say the era of the original series, but even if this was the era of Enterprise, or when Discovery's first season, which, as Nikki noticed, I'm wearing the season 1 blues right now, that's so far removed, but this is like 1,000 years after Gilligan's Island. And now, if we're going to find out he's some kind of like artificial life form, there could be something that, maybe he's been around that long. He's not, he's not a human. I suppose I'm going to have to allow it, but I'm just like, if the writers were like, let's just say 3-hour tour, and they're like, oh man, that's hysterical, but it's so distracting.
It was distracting.
Yeah.
And it also made me wonder. So then it took me down this whole train of thought of like, is that foreshadowing? Are they going to go across the galactic barrier and get stuck?
Oh,
do we have ourselves on a Gilligan's Island kind of,
who on the crew would be the Gilligan that, if if you watch that show long enough, you realized if in the first week they had eaten Gilligan Yellow Jacket style, they would have been home by that second week, because the professor is a genius and he has everything figured out. And then Gilligan goes and screws it up. And it's like, why are you keeping this guy around? You're probably also very hungry. And, I don't know, but yeah, that would be interesting if they get stuck where they are, but I don't know that they can get stuck, because they did raise the stakes, and that's sort of been really for the crew, and I think us as an audience, we could understand that Book would be as upset as what happened to Quajon, but then to put it in the perspective, and I'm like, oh, is Vulcan closer to Earth than I thought it was? Because it's like, yeah, so it's going to be Earth, Titan, and Vulcan. So I'm like, is Vulcan just like right? I thought Vulcan was really far away from Earth, like really far away from Earth.
I did too. I thought it was way far away, because why then would we have not?
And just to correct myself,
planet,
it's not Vulcan anymore; it's Navarre, which is the unified homeworld world. Yeah. But and maybe that's the difference. That but because Navarre was the Romulan homeworld, right? So they just renamed the planet. So where is it that the DMA they've established is large, and this one's bigger. But at the same time, I'm like, I understand from a storytelling standpoint, you want to have, all of our main characters, all 12 of them, to be facing the same thing and having to deal with it. But I that threw me off. You know what? I'm gonna need a little pop up map as like one of the extras on
Yeah.
Paramount Plus. They need to give me a map or a short treks where it's like a cartography lesson. Just like, well, here's where they are. I mean, look, that definitely raises the stakes for everyone because and just to sort of rub it into the president, they're all like, oh man, I can't wait to go surfing, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna
To
do all
do
these
all these
fun
Earth
things.
activities.
Yeah. And then it would have been like Burnham just like, yeah, not so fast, we'll talk about that later. Oh, I did want to go back to Dr. Kovich. He talked about how he had something more pressing that he had to attend to, and they're like, what could be more important than this? And he's like, hopefully you continue to not need to know. And I was like, well, what about us? How about they let us know? Because
Right.
I want to know. I'm like, I'll just, not even worry about what happens the rest of the season. If we could go with him and all of his, what other, like, does he have references to Green Acres, Petticoat Junction, My Mother, the Car? Like what is he going to unpack for us? So I was hoping to at least get a hint of that, but not Kovic. He's got it locked down. But just sort of to circle back, because I'd wanted to say that before. So what do you think, Nikki, now facing the crew and this sort of this this panel? I don't even know what they called it. This like this council that they're bringing
Of
there to help
delegates.
with the
Yeah.
delegates for first contact. What are your thoughts about notching it up, well, several thousand levels for our characters?
I I I don't know. I think the stakes are certainly high, but also too conveniently high.
Yeah.
That it's Earth and Navarre are in line for destruction was a little too convenient. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it was a convenient way to make sure that everybody's on the same page, but at the same time, it's too convenient.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's overly convenient, and definitely a little surprising. But but that's what they've established. So you have the crew of Discovery as far away as they can be. But and I don't know, like, are they going to have to go back through this galactic barrier? Because it doesn't seem like the ship would be able to survive another ship through there. And this was one of those times where there's a lot of sci-fi that it doesn't make me feel stupid, but Star Trek is usually the one where I'm like, man, they explained it, but I don't think I get these little bubbles that they're not getting destroyed by. I'm like, oh, and there's another one. I'm like, okay,
And then they changed to grayscale, which
yeah,
was weird.
that was weird.
Yeah. No, I'm wondering that too. Like they got through, will they be able to get back? Which is why this whole idea of them getting stuck on that side got stuck in my head, because it was like between the Gilligan's Island reference, getting through the galactic barrier, barely getting through it,
Yeah.
and then Bryce leaving. I was like, no, I don't know. I felt like they were setting us up so that we were going to be out there for a little longer. With so many different important people on the ship, we were going to be out there a little longer than I would not be surprised if they were still out there at the end of the season and we started next season off with them still outside the galactic barrier.
And do you expect, because there's 3 more episodes, do you expect that they will avoid the destruction of Earth and Navarre during this season, or could the season end with just a great big DMA mic drop? And by that I mean huge explosion that kills billions of people.
Yeesh.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think that this show would end a season with something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I feel like it's a lot more Star Trekky, and that things are saved at the last minute, and you pay some kind of price, you know. But I don't think that the DMA is going to destroy everything by the end of the season. But yeah, being in the on the other side of the galactic barrier, it's like you're getting to go through the undiscovered country. And I mean that for as much as I rag on Voyager, it is an interesting idea to like, well, we're going to send them way to this other part of space, so it's not going to be like the same stuff that you saw on Next Generation and on Deep Space Nine. We're going to
Yeah.
go somewhere completely different, deal with some new stuff. Except, of course, there was also Q. But, other than that, it was mostly he can be anywhere he wants. Yeah. So I, I think that it would make sense for them to stay there. But then they've got the president on the ship. And, I'm not quite sure what they can do with any of this. But it's I did not get my hopes up, by the way, that we were going to meet unidentified species 10C this episode. I've gotten to the point that I I think we will meet that species not in the final episode, but maybe we will meet them at the end of the 12th episode, and then we'll really just only deal with them in one episode. But because I don't think we're getting them next week. They do not want to rush anything,
No, they're taking their sweet time with this season and with
Yeah.
getting to. It feels like it's sort of a slow crawl to something, whatever it is, and Tarka and that whole sort of side journey into his backstory felt like a distraction from what we really wanted to be seeing. So you're right; they're not in any hurry to really show us first contact.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. And the season has moved slow, and then it feels slower because they took like what, a month off or whatever it was. Or was it even longer than that? I don't even remember now. It's just they were gone for a while, and it's like, come on, just just show us this species, But I don't. I don't know. I just feel like we deserve a little bit, a little bit more, a glimpse of them. Some kind of like sneaky, like M. Night Shyamalan, the shadow runs by and like, what was that? Do you think it was species 10C? Nah, I don't know anything, but nah, that's not the pace that they're on. And then who's gonna have to find their way off the ship for us to have a character from species 10C? It's because we've really established that it seems like it's basically 12. Um, what I do think we've gotten a decent amount of this season is some nice character moments, just little interactions. I thought that there was some good Stamets it was good for him to apologize to Adira, because it was like, man, he's being weird,
Yeah.
right when they get back. And through like with very little fanfare, it's like, and Adira's back, but I do like sort of the little family that Stamets, Dr. Culber, Adira, and Gray seem to have. And I don't know, I feel like those scenes are usually very well done. And I think if you think back to when we met Stamets, he's much less rough around the edges.
Yeah,
And I like seeing him in his relationship with Hugh, and then also this parental role. What did you think of how those played out, Nikki?
I thought that was just a sweet, tender moment. I thought when he was in front of Burnham, talking about how important Adira's job is, and she was like, "Oh my god," I felt her go, "Dad."
Yeah, right, exactly.
So I thought it was precious and cute when he came back, and when he said, "I will always reach for you," I got a little teary eyed because I was
Oh,
like, "Oh, like that's exactly the message that our young queer people need to be hearing right now. That someone is always going to reach for them in love." And so that that made me a little emotional. I
y-
thought that was a really tender moment.
Yeah, and I think that there's nothing nothing less surprising in Stamets's backstory than the idea that he had a bad dad. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we've seen you, we get it, we we know what's going on there. Yeah, it's I don't know. This I think regardless of how it ends, this will not be my favorite season of this show. And as we wind down to the end, it continues to be my least favorite season of this show. And not to say that I'm completely disliking it. I just I don't know, maybe it's like two less episodes. We'll see when it's all said and done. But for what we've already gotten, the 10 episodes we've gotten, I'm like, this is a good, like, I don't know, 7, 8 episodes worth of content. And I usually like shows that drop once a week. But if there's ever a season of a show that's felt like it would be better as a binge, it's this, I think.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know.
They're just trickling trickling information out for us, and things are moving so slowly
Yeah.
that that if this was a binge, I would have binged it and maybe felt satisfied. If I had binged it and gotten to a satisfactory ending, I would have felt like, okay, well, that there were some slow episodes, but it was overall really good. I
Yeah.
think the fact that they're dropping, the fact that it's, a slow, steady drop every week, is just highlighting the slowness of the season.
Yeah, and again, the fact that they artificially slowed it down by not giving us the episodes. Like, we should have been done with this season like 2 months ago, basically.
Yeah.
So, they definitely dragged it out. Well, let's have a friendly wager. We'll set the Vegas line. What episode do you think we will get to actually see? And I'll just say see, because maybe we'll see a representative from Species 10C without hearing a representative Species 10C and how they might communicate. Do you think so? We have 11, 12, and 13. So the answer should be one of them. Well, you could say not at all. But do you think we'll get them in one of these next 3 episodes? And if so, which episode do you think it is?
I think we will get them in one of the next 3 episodes. I think it'll be the end of episode 12,
Yep.
with some of episode 13 sort of being about where setting us up for next season. So setting up
Yeah.
whatever the new problem will be for next season.
It's not going to be much of a wager because that's exactly what I think is going to happen. I think you'll see them at the end. I think we won't get it next week. And I think that Earth and Navarre, which are apparently are like the twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, they're literally right next to each other. Who knew? They're going to be right on the verge of destruction, and it'll end. And then we'll have to come back for episode 12. But yeah, I think we'll finally, I think the DMA is going to start doing its thing next episode, and it's going to get a lot closer. And then in episode 12, and I said this last week, it could even be they like Burnham like lays her eyes on them, on the view screen, or they materialize on the bridge, but then they don't even show it to us until episode 13. But I think we're going to see what it is. And man, I don't know what they've got planned. When you think of the variety of aliens we've gotten from this show in now it's 55 years. It's you have to wonder. It's like, I'm sure they can top it, but will they?
And all that conversation that Kovich had with the new specialty guy, the new language
Yeah.
linguist guy. I think we're going to have communication barriers. I think they're not going to communicate the same way that we do. I think that we're going to they may even be in some other dimension as far as I think
Oh,
it could
that's
be
fair.
some really weird new alien that will make it difficult to communicate and maybe even difficult for them to get back. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think it did make me think of the aliens in the first Star Trek pilots. Speaking of 55 years ago, the Cage, where they communicated telepathically and they had like the giant brains,
Yeah.
and it could be something like that. Yeah, they could be sort of like out of phase with this reality where it's like very difficult. And yeah, I always want to be impressed by this show, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt until they disappoint me, which I hope they don't. I'm not rooting for that. We'll talk about that soon. And one thing before we announce some scheduling plans, I wanted to tidy up. Last week we talked about favorite Star Trek movies, and our pal Craig Robinson from across the pond did tweet at me after the fact. And so he's apparently younger than I thought he was. And he said he's a little bit newer to Star Trek. And he said that his favorite was the 2009 first J.J. Abrams movie. And of those movies, I think that that's definitely the best one. And I saw it not too long ago. They did one of those things at the Hollywood Bowl where they have like an orchestra play with a movie. So it was cool to see it that way. And I think the casting for those movies is great. The younger actors playing the characters that we already liked, and you could have very easily done that poorly, But I think that I mean, the only one that was like the no-brainer, I think, was Zachary Quinto as Spock. It was like everybody was like, well, who else would it be?
It had to be him, absolutely.
Yeah,
especially after he played Siler on
Heroes. Yeah,
on Heroes. Yeah, it had to be him.
Yeah, because he had already reached the same like nerd community, so like he was a guy we knew, So, but so and I think that the second is by far Into Darkness. I think is a huge misstep. But Star Trek Beyond was kind of fun, and I'm very disappointed that it's been so many years since we've had another visit with that crew. They keep telling us that they're going to do another one, but so far it has yet to materialize. But look, it's a good example because there are people that I would do shows with at AfterBuzz that was also the first Star Trek movie that they saw. So it did continue. It wasn't on TV for a while at that point. I mean, it hadn't been on TV, I think, since Enterprise ended. So it had been like 5 years or so, I think. So it did a very important job of bringing the franchise back to the forefront and
introducing it to a bunch of people who had never seen it before. And I agree.
And I don't think that what is now Paramount Plus, but used to be CBS All Access, I don't think they ever could have launched that app without having viable Star Trek content to put on it, because who else is going to pay for this? It's like, yeah, we'll pay for it, but I don't know about anybody else. So in terms of the Star Trek content, I literally did not realize until this week when I texted you, Nikki, I don't understand why Picard is starting before Discovery ends. And maybe it's just as simple as they had some post-production stuff. That's why they had to take the break with Discovery, and they had to finish up their last 3. But were you surprised that they're going to be running 2 Star Trek shows on the same day? Also, they're both going to
super surprised.
Yeah,
and a little annoyed.
That's it too. Yeah,
it's a little too much. I think to give us, as Star Trek fans, we like to savor. We like to go deep on our stuff. And so to have us now have to go deep on 2 shows at the same time in completely different time periods, and in Picard they're supposed to be going back in time, it's going to be very confusing. So
and so they're going to both show up on Paramount Plus on Thursdays, and that's obviously here in the United States. But I think that's when most people get it. And anybody who tells me that they watch Discovery before they watch Picard, since they're both dropping at the same time, I'm going to call you a liar, because it's, I suppose they could get to a point where I'm like really wondering about the finale, and maybe I would watch the finale before that week's Picard. But obviously next week I'm going to watch Picard first.
100%.
And I'm going to be reminded pretty quickly that Raffi isn't the only character I don't like. Crazy blonde murder doctor that everybody forgave like instantly is still, it might be worse than Raffi from a human being standpoint. Raffi annoys me as a viewer. Seems like a decent person, but she is a crazy murder doctor, and everybody's like, Can
we make that her new name, Crazy Murder Doctor CMD?
Yeah, comma MD. So what we will do is next week you will be, and this is mostly due to just some personal real life scheduling stuff. So what you will be able to do next Friday, which I think is March 4th, you will be able to find Nikki, myself, and possibly some other familiar faces joining us, at least for the premiere, but we'll find out. So that Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And sorry, Craig, I don't know what time that is where you are, but it's like
8 hours
9.
ahead,
It's like,
so
yeah. So do the math. Do the math. It's late. I
it's
think Craig
really
will be
late. Yeah.
sleeping. Yeah. But it'll be a Saturday morning for him. So, but and then we will figure out. I would like to say that I can definitely promise a standalone show for Discovery, but oh my gosh, look at that.
Yay! Hey,
Craig,
Craig.
we were just talking about you and the J.J. Abrams Star Trek and how that's the best of the three of them. But in any case, so that's the plan for that. I think that most likely what'll happen is that the following week, we will do separate shows for Discovery and Picard. But I think that we're going to probably just miss next week. We won't do a Discovery show next week. We might double up at the end, like around March 11th. But I will tweet out if we do anything differently. It'll be a little tricky for me to schedule things, and they just can't do it. I also need to be able to have time to watch both shows.
Right.
So, and I don't think I can do that before the weekend, especially because next Thursday, I'm spending 2 hours and 56 minutes watching the new Batman movie. So that is, and by the way, you see a movie that's 3 hours, it doesn't take like 3 hours and 5 minutes out of your life. It's like a 5-hour ordeal. Because I'm meeting up with a friend who lives in Long Beach, so I got to meet him in the middle. We're going to the Howard Hughes Parkway, seeing it in beautiful XD, whatever that is. And so Thursday is just shot for me. I probably will not see Picard on Thursday, but I will watch it in time. But this is a two-part statement. Lewis Cox, does the Discovery go to the Andromeda Galaxy? Also, #free Ukraine. Thank you for that, Lewis. Oh no, he said he was doing dad taxi duties and he'll watch the archive of our show. Thank you, Craig. And thank you, Lewis, for being here. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I will. I don't, some of the apps some of the streaming services, us living here on the West Coast, we're able to do things like watch it at like 9 p.m. the day before. But what a lot of them do is that it's midnight Pacific time /3 a.m. Eastern. And then the people on the East Coast who stay up for like Marvel shows and things, I don't understand how you do it. Like I'm never that excited where I'm going to be like, what, I'm going to watch something at 3 a.m. I've watched some stuff at midnight, but it's a big difference. So I will get to Picard as soon as I can, and we will talk about it. And that will be a separate show. Although the way that we've covered Discovery, sometimes it might be easier to double up and do them both in the same show. But I think we should keep have the separation of church and state. And I don't know. I'm going to assume Picard is church.
Oh, absolutely.
But what are we excited for? Since we're talking about Picard, even though this is not his show, what are we hoping for in season 2 of Picard, which again will be dropping next Thursday?
I am super excited to see Q, and I don't know why, because I know it's just going to make me mad, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm on record as I've never really been a Q fan. I've always thought that John Delancey's performances are exceptional. I just don't like the concept of the character. All of that put aside, I am excited to see him again because it has been a very long time.
Yeah.
Because Q was never in any of the movies.
No.
So the last time we saw him was in the series finale for Next Generation, the TV. Oh, that's not true because I think the Voyager episode was after that. But anyway, the last time we saw him on a show that mattered was the series finale of Next Generation. And yeah, because the Deep Space Nine episode was early on. It was like season 1 of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
But so it's been like almost 30 years since we've seen Q. It's more than 25, you know? So I, for that reason, I'm excited and can't wait for the explanation as to how an all powerful, omniscient being got older, you know?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to what possible reason they could have to come back to the 21st century
Yeah.
and why they would put us through that. But I'm trying not to judge it beforehand, but I'm judging it beforehand.
Will Crazy Murder Doctor kill again in season 2? I think it's very possible. And Craig, it's always with the Voyager shade. Yeah, it's part of my brand at this point. You know, there's a lot of episodes I haven't seen. Although I did see the actor who played Neelix was in the latest episode of Pam and Tommy on Hulu. He played a very not nice lawyer for Bob Guccione from Penthouse, but it was great to see him. I've told the story before that I once saw that actor at a party. I guess he was a friend of a friend of a friend, one of those things. And I was just thinking like, oh, I could go over and say, you were my least favorite character on my least favorite Star Trek show. But instead I didn't.
That was a really good move that you didn't do that.
I
That
know, but
you
think
should
about the
have thought of
story
it.
I'd have if I had done it, you know. And even just a whiff of Whoopi would be great, says Craig. I believe that. I mean, we've seen the trailer; it's more than a
Yeah,
whiff.
there's more than a
And
whiff.
yeah, and I'm sure that the marketing department really appreciate Whoopi being in the news so much earlier this year as they try to roll out a show that she's going to be a part of. It's like, oh man, Whoopi, what are you doing? You know, but she's back on The View, so it seems like
She's
everything's
back.
fine now.
She got her. She served her suspension, and now
Yeah.
she's back, just in
Yeah,
time
but
to
I'm
promote
just
the
saying I
show.
can imagine you're like doing PR for Picard and that happens and I guess, you know, it was a few months ago, but they're just like, "Oh, come on. What is
Right.
Alison Pill going to really murder someone in real life? Like what's going to happen next?" Yeah. And Lewis says that Picard's getting a season 3. I believe that'll be the last season of Picard. I mean, look, I don't know how much you want to put Sir Patrick Stewart through. You know, I don't want there to be 10 seasons of this show. I would like
No.
him to. I'd like to know that he's still with us more than 10 years from now. But I don't want him to work that hard for the next 7
I
years or
agree.
whatever.
Like let's let him do another season, and then let him rest because he's
Yeah.
older now. He can't be doing all this all the
and
time.
if you want to do some like ultimate like mashup movie with like a bunch of different crews and he has like some scenes in it, you know, that's fine. But yeah, let's not put this man on a TV schedule you know, for too many more years. But I'm excited for it, interested in seeing where it is. And Craig, I don't know if you were here, but and I say this to Craig, I say this to Lewis, I say this to everyone who's watching. I will tweet this out later. Anyone who tells me that they watched Discovery before the new episode of Picard is a liar. There's no one who's going to do that. You know, even people on the show, like Sonequa Martin Green isn't going to like, I want to show this to my family. No, she's like, I want to see what Jean-Luc is up to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited about Jean-Luc.
Yeah, and you know that I will at least once an episode always refer to him as JL just to annoy you.
And it will make my skin crawl every single time.
Every time. So tune in for that. And we will do that next Friday at 7 Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And we should have all of our scheduling figured out by then, at least for the remainder of Discovery. And then we'll settle on a nice day and time. And I think some other people might dictate, you know, if there's other people who want to be a part of that show, we'll work around some other schedules. I was going to wrap up at William Walton. Could the fact that Picard and Discovery are going beyond at the same time lead to a surprise crossover? Yes. I love that idea. Because they are traveling in time in Picard. And they did reference him earlier in the season of Discovery.
They did.
I don't think that they were originally scheduled to cross over like this, but I mean, and I don't mean story-wise. I mean,
right?
Schedule-wise. But man, if that happens, yeah, because like, what if like episode 1 of Picard ties into like episode 12 of Discovery? You know, what if Q is season 10C? I mean, sorry, not season 10C, species 10C.
All right. Thank you,
You
William
know what?
Walton.
I'm
You've
so
given us,
yeah, William.
given
I
us,
like I said, I was going to wrap it up, but your comment was like, you
right?
know, there's a DMA that just went off right here. Well, I hope you're right because I will be more excited for both shows if we
Yeah.
get that. And one last thought on Picard. If there's someone from the old show that we didn't see in season 1 that you would most like to see, so someone we didn't already see, who is number 1 for you that you would like to see? If you want to think about it, I'm going to say Worf for me. I would like to see how Worf is doing, like 20 plus years older, and he had true happiness for like one season with Jadzia Dax, and then the other Dax was like, yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
into like a Klingon marriage. So, I hope he's doing well. But who would you most like to see?
You're gonna make fun of me,
I
but
can't wait. Oh, I know who
I
it
would
is.
I would like to see Wesley Crusher.
I I would like to see scenes with his mom and Jean-Luc. I would
Jean-Luc,
like to
yeah.
see the way that they interact. There are still so many questions about the two of them. And in like early seasons, it was like kind of implied that maybe Picard might have fathered Wesley, but it seems like they abandoned that. That was like more of a season 1 thing. you
Yeah.
know. Well, and then they also didn't have Gates McFadden for season 2, so that threw things off. All of a sudden, you had Dr. Pulaski running around. But anyway, let us know. Oh my gosh, Craig, what a great answer. You want to see Reg, Dwight
Totally.
Schultz, Howlin' Matt Murdoch from the
Totally.
A-Team. I would love to see Reg. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I would like to see Reg. And boy, they would have to really come up with something that made sense for Reg to show
For
up.
Reg
But
to show up. That would be,
yeah,
there
but
is no way that they could come up with a way for him to show up, but that would be
yeah.
good to see. I think they should do a Where Are They Now Star Trek The Next Generation uh episode of Picard.
Yeah, I think that they should. It should it should be like the Enterprise D and E reunion show. They're
There you
it's
go.
like it's set up like a Real Housewives reunion.
I was
It's like
gonna
everybody's
say,
set
and
up.
what's his name can
Andy
host
Cohen is
it.
there.
Andy
Yeah,
Cohen can host it.
yeah. Well, Loose Cock says Janeway. You get Janeway on
Prodigy.
Prodigy, and I know it's animated, but it is Kate Mulgrew, so you get it. It's I I don't think. I mean, the fact that Picard and Seven of Nine like knew each other was like okay, and obviously Picard and Janeway would have been in the room together probably many times
Yep.
after Voyager returned home, but I don't know how much it makes sense to put the two of them together, but I would all be there for it. And finally, we will wrap up. William Walton, it might have to be done in a similar way to the Enterprise series finale. Oh, why would you bring that up? That Enterprise series finale.
I didn't see
Uh,
it. I never finished that series.
I've told you need to jump ahead because it's such a they make such a poor choice. Like there's a narrative that and it's a tool of storytelling that I never like when it's done. Maybe Burnham is reviewing one of Picard's missions to try and help her solve a problem. Yeah, I don't love that in all honesty. If you're gonna do a crossover, let's do like a huge like Jetsons meet the Flintstones style crossover, you know. Which to me that is right at the top of mountains of crossovers. That and the Murder She Wrote Magnum PI crossover. I
Oh
mean,
man, you're going way back. Okay.
because I'm old. Yeah. Yeah. Craig's like, I don't know what he's talking about, but that's all right. But I think anybody can understand the concept of Jetsons meet the Flintstones, even if you didn't see it. But was I excited for that? Anyway, I'm excited to see all of how this season winds up, and of course, getting to reconnect with our friend Jean-Luc. It has been almost 2 years since the end of the first season, so we are ready. And we look forward to seeing everybody in the weeks ahead. But until then, Nikki, where can people find you?
You can find me at nikkibaileycomedy.com or on all the social medias at nikkibailey_.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And of course, subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. And you can subscribe and get this show and never have to worry about the crazy schedule for this show and for Picard. You'll also get Marvel Movie Talk, our political show Biden Time, and the titular Blattcast, where just yesterday we did 2 episodes talking about Peacemaker on HBO Max. So find all of that by subscribing to the Blattcast YouTube channel. That is all the time we have for this week. But until next time, live long and prosper.